Hello, my dears. This is Darshana Avila, somatic sex and intimacy coach and tantric body worker, and I am coming to you with the second day of Power to the P, our month of February dedicated to mindful masturbation, self-pleasure, and really just getting to know our bodies in this deeply meaningful and beautiful way. So I just completed my practice a little while ago, and I'm still feeling kind of yeah. um, Today was a tender one for me. And yeah, a lot of deep emotion is what I was really in contact with. I want to back up just a touch before I actually get into my experience, because I received an email from someone who's following along. And this individual had a few points that really resonated for me. And I imagine are going to be true for some of you as well. So I wanted to just begin by speaking to you a little of what might be happening in our collective experience, even though this is a solo practice. This is not my first time doing a committed masturbation journey. I actually support a program called Cervix that is geared toward those who have cervixes and vaginas. So it is not as widely applicable as what I'm hoping to do here with Power to the P. But it is a similar thing in that we have a container of time. We do 21-day journeys. And so I know what it's like to come up against the concerns, the fears, the resistance, the doubts, particularly just starting with how the heck am I going to make time for this every day? I've succeeded and not succeeded in honoring my 21-day commitments. And that's something I really just want to presence, is that this is your choice to take this on, and it's your choice what you make of it. And so there's no right or wrong way. I do suggest from my own experience that if you're able to establish a relatively consistent time of day to do your practice, that helps tremendously. And let me tell you, today I decided I needed a little extra sleep this morning. And so I did my practice later in the day than I normally would. Life happens. Okay. So this is not to give you the get out of jail free card per se. Like, you know, if the consistency is possible for you, then I do encourage it. And I also encourage you to listen to your body in all ways. And if there is something else that's in the field for you and you need to shift things a little bit, having a degree of flexibility is important. And doing your best to practice daily, yes, is an amazing thing. And you're not a horrible person. You have not failed in any way if you don't. So let's just get that one squared away straight off the bat. Another thing too is many of us, myself included, you know, we begin our journeys of self-pleasure and it's a very orgasmically focused experience. It's what gets us interested, okay? We discover our bodies, we start to touch ourselves, it feels good. All of a sudden we're getting flooded with these chemicals in our systems. We don't even really know that that's happening. We just know it feels good. And so we move in the direction of our orgasm, which is very often done through a lot of friction and contraction and shortness of breath. This practice is not about orgasm. If you're having awesome orgasms, wonderful. If you're not, just as wonderful. I don't often orgasm from my self-pleasure practices, particularly if I'm not using a vibrator. Or let me say, I don't often have peak orgasms. And that might be a new distinction for you. That might be something you're familiar with. But there are actually different kinds or qualities of orgasm. For a woman in particular, in our bodies, we're able to have orgasms that originate from different parts of our genitalia. So there's a clitoral orgasm, and then you can have cervical orgasm. You can orgasm from your G-spot, some orgasm from anal stimulation. So there's lots of different ways to experience your pleasure. And if you have become habituated to a particular kind of orgasm through a more friction-based, whether that's rubbing your clit, using a vibrator, you know, stroking really, really hard up and down your shaft or the head of your penis, whatever it might be, if you've got your technique that's worked for you and given you a particular result, that result being an orgasmic release, a building to a peak and then a diffusing of that energy very quickly so that you drop back down again, I really encourage you to consider that this is an opportunity to learn that there's more to masturbating and more to your body and more to pleasure and more to orgasm than you might have previously considered. So that's my teachable point for today. To bring it back to my experience, today was not about orgasm for me. I started off shaking and undulating and moving my body nude in front of the mirror. I was freshly showered. I had put my favorite lotion all over my body. I felt good. And I also didn't feel like I was horny or aroused in any which way. But then when I started to shake and the energy began to build from my pelvis, actually really from the soles of my feet as they were rooting down into the earth, up my legs, into my pelvis, it was as if I was channeling the energy of the earth up through my body, through the shaking, through the undulating. That vibration was moving and stirring up something that had been a bit stagnant in me. My breath started to quicken. I started to feel flush. And through a few minutes of that practice, maybe just like 4 minutes or so, I did notice a certain juiciness and an aliveness come into my genitals. And so I lay down in front of a large mirror today where I was really quite close to it and could look into my own eyes was a big part of what I wanted to commit to, as well as to look at my yoni. And I really stayed present with myself in a deep way. It was not a journey about external stimulation. It was really an internal experience of my own presence. I also spent a lot of time in deep physical contact with my cervix today. And that's something that, as I mentioned, I do have experience with, and I know my body has a certain quality of openness to that contact. That might be something very new for you. And I can just simply say, if it is, it's a very slow journey. You don't always have your body immediately open to that kind of contact. And when it does happen, you can expect a very wide array of emotion and sensation to surface. And so today, I was really feeling just a homecoming. That's the way to describe it. As if I had landed in contact with something that was part of my essence, part of my home base that I've been away from for a while. And tears were just streaming. And at first it did feel a bit sad. Like there was a quality of longing and a grieving even, but then that gave way to something really joyful, like, oh my goodness, I am here with myself. I am choosing this deep connected presence, really feeling what's going on in my body, watching how my breath was stopping altogether at times, how I could deepen it, bring it really far down into the root, and just really be in that unfolding of the mystery, the curiosity for what my body had to show me today. It didn't want me to be tooling around with my clit. It didn't want a vibrator. It didn't even want penetration from anything, not a crystal or glass wand, none of it. I just wanted to be with myself in a very tender, slow way. And so I spent a lot of time, and granted, I do have long fingers, but just with my fingers like around my cervix, pressing, feeling the opening of my cervix, which it's kind of really like the head of a penis, deeper inside, for lack of a better description, but it's actually an accurate one, where you've got that little tiny opening that at different times in our monthly cycle, your cervix will be a bit lower down in the vaginal canal. It'll be a bit further up. The opening will be more pronounced or more closed. This changes not just with hormones, but also with our emotional state and our sense of safety and well-being and arousal. So there's so many things that are influencing our body's openness to contact. And this is true whatever your genitalia is, whatever your gender is. There is really no way to overestimate the importance of your sense of physical, emotional, spiritual safety when you are engaging in a sensuous encounter, even if it's with your own self. And that's why creating an atmosphere that feels really nurturing and juicy and warm and inviting and romantic, all of these things are not superfluous. They're actually a very important part of what sets the tone for our bodies to open to deeper contact. So yeah, that's a bit of what came up for me today. I'm still just in this kind of soft, diffuse, joyful, curious energy. I feel a little tired, actually, like I just moved some big emotion through my body. And so I'll be gentle with myself for the rest of the day. And I wish you well in your exploring. And if you do have questions, you're welcome to comment on my posts. And if you feel comfortable letting your questions be heard publicly, you can also write to me directly, and I will bring your questions into my videos if they're appropriate and or respond to you. So happy self-pleasuring. Enjoy this magical wild ride that we're on, and I will see you tomorrow. Mwah.